I'd like to take you all on a drive with me. It's September 2015, and we're in Liberia. And it's hot and humid, as always, in Liberia. And the windows are rolled down in the car because there's no air conditioning. And we're going relatively fast because we're on a brand new blacktop paved road, which means no potholes, which is really rare for Liberia. And Akon is on repeat. And to my left, in the driver's seat, is my old and dear friend, UJ. Now, UJ is not a very talkative person. He has a lot of stories to tell, but you have to have the right questions. So this drive from Banga to Monrovia was about 3 hours, and I was prepared for this drive. I had written a list of 20 questions that I wanted to ask him. I thought I could use the time in the car to get to know my best friend a little better. And I systematically went through these questions as we drove to Monrovia. And I learned a lot that day. I learned some interesting things, like the fact that UJ was once on the national Liberian handball team. I learned a lot of painful things that day, like the story of how he lost his mother when he was 7, when they were fleeing Monrovia when the war broke out. But one of the most important things I learned that day was, if you ask a question, be prepared for the answer, and be prepared for where that answer is going to take you. So one of the questions I asked was, UJ, if you could do anything in the world, if you had all the money and all the opportunity at your fingertips, what would you do? And he didn't miss a beat. He said immediately, if I could do anything, I would buy a plot of land outside of Monrovia and I would set up an orphanage to be a home for some of these street kids. And looking back on that moment, I swear to you, it happened in slow motion. I could see all of the pieces falling into place, and I felt this very powerful sense of certainty. And I looked at him and I said, okay, let's do that. And so I come back to Berlin, and in addition to my full-time job and my 2 little boys, I founded an NGO. And things went pretty well at the beginning, as well as could be expected, and then we needed to find $20,000 to buy the plot of land. Now, $20,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but I realized that I actually hate asking people for money. And that's not even the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is sparking people's interest in your vision and convincing people that your vision is worthy of their support. So a typical conversation for me goes something like this. We're in the process of founding a child care center, an orphanage in Liberia. Where? Nigeria. No, Liberia. West Africa, between Sierra Leone and the Ivory Coast. Never heard of it. Have you heard of blood diamonds, child soldiers, Ebola? Ah, yeah, why would you want to work there? I love Liberia, and I love Liberians. And there are thousands of kids there that don't have a roof over their head or a loving family to care for them. Yeah, but you can't help all of those kids. You're right, I can't. But even if I help one kid, it's worth the effort. Well, yeah, if your money ever makes it there, everybody in Africa is corrupt anyway. Okay, so maybe not every single conversation is as direct or as frustrating as that, but essentially the message is always the same. We can't help you. And of course, $20,000 for the land is just the tip of the iceberg. Once we buy the land, we have to survey and deed the land. Once we do that, we need to build the perimeter fence around the 4-acre property. Then we need to make sure our running costs are covered, and we need to make the car repairs, and we need to replace the sign on the front of the office in Monrovia that was stolen because apparently it wasn't nailed down well enough. And I feel like there's always something that we urgently need money for, and I'm always scrambling for money all the time. And in the midst of all this scrambling, I'm reminded of what the Reverend Mother said to Maria in the film The Sound of Music. She said, Maria, when God closes a door, somewhere he opens a window. And I believe that. I believe that there's a solution to every problem as long as you work hard enough and look hard enough. Excuse me. But I swear to you, in the last 2.5 years of my life, I feel like all I've been doing is climbing out of windows. And sometimes the window's really, really high and I need a ladder to get there. And climbing out of windows is exhausting. I'm exhausted. And when I get overwhelmed with this exhaustion, and I get overwhelmed with these frustrating conversations, and I start to question my capabilities, and I start to question the time that I have to commit to this project, I do what any smart person should do when they're exhausted, and I get some sleep. Because I've realized that you cannot have perseverance when you're tired. So sleep for me probably doesn't sound so restful. It usually involves me looking like this between my two sons. Dylan on this side with his little arm draped around my neck, and Nelson on this side with his stuffed alligators taking up half of my pillow. And it's here that, remarkably, I feel the most relaxed. And I feel the most contented. And I realize how insanely lucky I am to have 2 healthy children who have a roof over their head and a loving family to take care of them. And these 2 little monsters on either side of me give me so much energy to do what I do. And they take that negative feeling that I have all the time of being uncomfortable with my privilege, and they transform that into something positive, a motivation to make change. And so it's December 2018, and I'm in Liberia, and I'm in a town called Sasstown. It's where we bought the land for this child care center, this orphanage, and I'm sitting in a room full of community representatives and elders, and it's hot and humid. And it's a beautiful moment. We're sitting around and we're talking about the progress of the project, and I'm showing gratitude to the community members for their support of this project. And as I'm sitting there and listening to the people talk, I have another one of those slow motion moments. And UJ is again right on my left-hand side, and I see all these pieces falling into place, and I feel the same powerful sense of certainty. And I think to myself, Janel, if you could do anything in the world, if you had all the money and all the opportunity at your fingertips, what would you do? And the answer is that I would do exactly what I'm doing. Thank you.